Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In a world that celebrates perfection, we rarely hear about the challenges, fears, and crossroads that successful leaders grapple with across work and life. Uncomfortable Growth Uncut shines a light on their personal story and the critical human skills we all need today to turn trials into triumph. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut. I have the lovely Potta Findikidis, who I've known for about, I'm not sure, 5-6 years. We met through Suncorp, where she was heading up marketing for the bank, Suncorp Bank, and I was doing some consulting work, but she's now in a CMO type-ish role at CBUS. She's officially Group Head of Brand and Marketing, and I'm so delighted that she could be here today. Welcome, Potta.
Thank you, Rowena. Thank you. I'm super delighted to be here as well.
So we're going to jump straight in. What's the uncomfortable growth story that you'd like to share today, Potta?
Yeah, and so I have obviously been reflecting on this one, and yeah, I did, and it was very recent that I had to think about my leadership story, and yeah, and I looked at it through the sort of the lens of decades, I suppose, and thinking about what's really helped me and what's shaped me both from personal events happened in my life as well as some the professional events, and I realized recently that probably my 40s. So I'm very, very happy and proud to be in my mid 50s. Lots of
Me too, Potta. Me too.
excellent. Lived lots of wisdoms, lived experience that comes with us being at this great age. And I realized when I was reflecting of where I've come from and where I am today, my 40s was probably what I call my I sort of call them my messy middle, which technically is not the middle, but my 40s is where I had some real highs and some lows, and I think that's really and the theme that I sort of wrap around all of that is just the way it has shaped me today. The resilient. I think I've always been built resilience over my career and through personal and professional, but my 40s I think is really where resilience, my muscle really built out. And I think that's really helped me now.
Yeah, and the thing with resilience too is it's not something I don't think that you can build theoretically. Resilience is when you go through hard stuff and then you realize that you can come out the other side. So it's very much earned. Like we all know what the concept of resilience is.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, yeah, I thought I was always resilient. But then I'm like, okay, this is a new level of resilience.
Yeah.
You go through some hard stuff. So what in your 40s kind of happened that developed this resilience for you?
Well, I think so. Probably the big sort of, let's say, the professional sort of event or milestone that hit me in my early 40s was that after just over 16 years, I finished, I was working at Telstra for a very long time. And so I hit my early 40s and decided to leave. And of course, and I always say to a lot of people I speak to, whether I'm coaching, mentoring, and just talking to friends, anyone wants to listen to me, that for me was what I call, wow, that really shaped me, who I am today, both from a professional and a personal growth perspective as well. But coming to the end of that term, let's call it, and me deciding to leave, I went through a period of uncertainty, lost identity, because I left a business where I knew everything. I was the oracle of the business. I had achieved, and I left on a high. So it was my decision. I thought, you know what, time to do something else. But I felt that I also had just moved back from Sydney to Melbourne, and I lived in Sydney for quite a while. And I felt like I had to rebuild who I was. But at the same time, so that was the professional bit where I felt a little bit like, where am I going to next? I had a lot of skills, a lot of experience, and I had to really think about, was I too in the bucket of being Telstra size, let's call it. So I had to think about, make sure I was clear on what my transferable skills were, and what I could bring to a new organization to rebuild, to get back to that feeling of, wow, I feel like I'm really, know so much and I can really make a difference for a business. But the personal side of that also was, at the same time, I got to that point in my early 40s where I realized I haven't had children. And so that was the, wow, have I missed that opportunity to become a mum? With
Yes.
I've been married for a very long time, and I've got a beautiful, beautiful husband who's my rock in my life.
Yeah.
But I had that reflection where, finished a wonderful, stellar career at Telstra, and then I also realized, wow, have I missed that opportunity? And started to put a bit of pressure on myself, saying, and probably, thinking it was what everyone else expected as well. I felt like I was failing on that side because I hadn't become a mum. So off we went and started our IVF journey. So we thought, okay, we're going to have to give it a crack here. And, and that was challenging, because it was
Yes.
challenging from putting myself through that. And for anyone who's been through IVF, it's not an easy process, and it's highs and lows. Anyway. So it is a really challenging, probably more challenging than I thought at the time. And for a while, I couldn't even talk about it. So there was a lot of family and friends who didn't even know we were going through that journey. And that was really more challenging. And I think that's what also at that moment, through those years, was also where I probably wasn't clear on what I wanted from my professional life as well. So I made some decisions that weren't quite right, and that's why I ended up going into some organisations that really were not right for me. But I think it was just not being clear in my head of what I wanted, and maybe that was where, because of the personal journey I was going through as well.
Yes.
So
Things just also really intersect, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
I can really relate to some of the things you're talking about. Um, and if it's okay, I'd like to just probe a little bit into them and then
yeah,
you can
definitely.
continue because you've got so many pieces there.
I've dropped nuggets. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
like I love the way that you shared, you loved Telstra, you were there for 16 years, but you chose to leave.
Mhm.
Um, but then it felt like a part of you was missing because you
Yes.
were very I guess, connected, and part of your identity
Mm.
was linked to that world at
Yes.
Telstra, not just the skills, right? Not just the
Yeah.
role, just not the skills, but the people you knew,
Yeah.
enjoyment that you'd had over your career there, the growth
Mm.
experience. And it's one of the things that I think we know but don't know.
Yeah.
And I had a similar experience when I left J&J after 16 years, so similar
There you
time.
go.
Um, Probably about the same time, actually. It was about 10
Mm.
years ago. And
Okay.
I chose to leave after 16 years because they were moving my role back to Singapore and it just didn't suit us as a family. But
Mhm.
I was happy to leave to look for something else.
Yes.
But I did go through almost a grieving process. So
Yes.
for about a year, because suddenly I felt that, because you're not there every day, I didn't feel like I was in the club or belonging.
Yes.
We talk a lot about
Mm.
belonging. I was not belonging. I wasn't speaking to everyone, even though I still spoke with them outside of work. It wasn't the
Yes.
same frequency. It wasn't the same discussions.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really did feel isolated and disconnected, which I never
Yeah.
expected to have because I was still friends with everyone.
Yes, it's definitely how I felt, because, and the interesting thing is, I started to think about coping mechanisms. You're right, because you just feel all of a sudden like you're a bit lost. It's like a breakup, like you've
It is
broken up.
like a breakup. It's
Yeah, and
exactly like a breakup.
even though it was on my terms, and
Yes.
I left on a high, and I was so proud and
Yeah.
loved everything, and which is why I still keep an eye on that business, and I feel like
Mhm.
it's one of my first loves, let's call
Yes.
it, just like my
Yes.
hubby, but my first love from a
Uh-huh.
professional perspective. So But you're right, and so I did. That's I think it was, and yeah, I didn't probably get back to work after I left Telstra for another 9 or 10 months, and because I
Yes.
had to go through that period of adjustment, so I started doing yoga, I started doing Pilates,
Uh-huh.
all the things you think you need to do to just sort of reset yourself. And I found
Mm,
even during yoga, I couldn't even concentrate because I was too wired. I was
yes.
wired in a certain way to operate in a certain way, which I
Yes.
loved. And so,
Yes.
and I think that's one of the things that it taught me actually, that I love to work in a certain way, and I'm wired, and my DNA is certain. So therefore, when I started to make some decisions where I went to some organisations which didn't work for me, and I think I probably made
Mm-hmm.
and it's great. We all make calls, and then we go, yeah, that's not quite right. What have we learnt from this? But I think it's because of the way I'm wired to operate, and that's
Mm.
where then even
Yeah.
when I ended up, after a little bit of that
Yeah.
roller coaster and ended up in a business like Suncorp, for example, which
Yes.
I found my groove again because
Yes.
it operated more like how I'm wired, working for that
Yes.
kind of a business, and I love
Yeah.
complexity. And but yeah,
Yes.
but you've got to, yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I definitely went through that moment where I went, which is why I couldn't even relax when I was doing yoga, because my head was just thinking about so much, and
Yeah.
so
And I think it
yeah.
does also spike fear in the sense
Mm,
that you thought of it, like rationally as this is a job I loved, of course, but
yes.
then you feel that loss of personal
Mm,
connection.
that's what it was. Yeah,
And that's the unexpected part. And then I
correct.
think, that can be like, what if I don't find that again? What what if I don't find a job? Because then you start to realize that it's not just the job. It's
Yes.
it's the people, it's the culture, the dynamic, the way you feel part, and
Uh,
it's a really big
yeah.
piece of connection.
It's very true. And even recently, I was lucky to be at the CMO Awards recent, and and in literally 5 minutes, I walked in and bumped into five ex-Telstra people and we call
Uh-huh.
ourselves the OGs. And and it was like we picked up where we left off, and we all
Yes.
stay connected in different ways, but especially
Yeah.
through social media like LinkedIn, of course. But
Uh-huh.
we every time, and I think it's that really special connection that even though you're not there anymore, but you bottle it up and you use that to
Yes.
keep connecting and finding that obviously because we all move into other organizations. But yeah, just
Yeah.
even when some of us we do bump into each other in a lot of state, yeah, we always reflect on what made us, and this is where I try and take this forward as well. What
Mm.
was the secret sauce? Why do we think we were such a connected team? Because, and I
Yeah.
always say this, I think finding a real true connection where people really respect each other and have each other's back and challenge each
Mhm.
other, but in a good way,
Yes.
you can get through anything. And that's why I do
Yes.
call my 40s my resilience, because I think
Yeah.
it was what I brought out of my 16 years of being in that business for so long, and working and seeing how strong you can create, you can create strength in unity, and how important the culture is,
Yes.
because every business has a challenge. Every business, no,
Yes.
no, nothing is perfect, as we all know. But yeah, so I use that
Yeah.
as a really good way to try and go, if we are all
What it can
aligned,
be.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is how you can still get through challenges together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was my reflections from it as well.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so
yeah,
powerful and so true. And, I think it's one of the challenges also for, say, some of the younger generations who it's not
yeah.
normal to experience 16 years, right? Like it's not it's not
It's
normal.
unheard
Like
of.
6 years would be like, whoa,
two
right?
years, 2 years is enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
geez. So it's a
yeah,
very different dynamic
mm,
and that all makes sense for today.
yeah,
But it's how do you quickly build that deep trust and that
yes,
appreciation for the diversity of skill sets because it is that
yeah,
combination, and particularly when you do really trust the person and you
yeah,
can have real conversations if something goes wrong and
yeah,
you know that you'll figure it out.
yes,
That's the secret sauce that,
exactly. Mm,
looking back at it took time to build, but today we have to build it faster and also with other differences like hybrid working and not being in the same office and, all
Yeah.
these other things. But I love that you said, you know how good it can be, and that's what you're looking at now in your new role as
Yeah.
well. Like this is
Yeah.
this is what great looks like. I know what that looks like, and that's where we're going.
Yeah, definitely. And again, and it's not saying you have to um everything has to be exactly the same because
Mhm.
people you're dealing with different people, but it's more just
Yes.
taking some of that so that you can help inspire people as well.
Mm.
And it's mainly for me, yeah, and I do use it a lot around you
Mm.
can get through anything if you've got a really tight network around you, and not just obviously your work is a really
Mm.
critical network to have around you, but obviously all your sort of personal people in your life as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
but I do, yeah, and so even now, yeah, I have those conversations with my team, my new team, to
Mhm.
inspire, not to let it
Mhm.
stop us from
Mhm.
getting through things,
Yes.
and yeah, just to
And
yeah,
enjoying it along the way, because that's the thing.
exactly
If you
fun,
always
yeah,
feel that there's
yeah.
people who are in it with you, no matter how big the challenge is, like you feel you can get there. You
I
feel
totally agree.
you can
Yeah,
figure it out. Doesn't matter how hard it is. Like that's the piece that gets you there
yeah.
in a really positive way.
That's right, and I think that's right. I mean, and as we know, and of course, when you add in all the personal stuff we all go through during our
Mm.
time, our careers, you've got to sometimes you just got to go, hang on, we're all human.
Mhm.
Let's have some fun, guys.
Mhm.
Let's take a moment.
Mhm.
Let's put things in perspective. Work with what you can
Mm.
control. Don't worry about stuff we can't. And we will get through this. But
Mhm.
yeah, and for me, I think just reminding ourselves to just take a moment to have a laugh or
Mhm.
fun, I think is really important, so that,
Yeah, it
and I
is.
think that is quite uniting as well for everyone.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
absolutely. So, and then you were also talking about how you were thinking, oh, maybe I should be a mother.
yes.
So tell me more about that because I do think this is a really important topic, particularly
Mm,
as women have choices, right? But
yes.
there are, you can still feel judged or you can still feel
Yeah,
like
that's
you're
right.
missing out. And so I haven't had anyone talk about this, so I'd love to just, see, yeah, understand your experience more, Potter.
Yes, and that was for me, the tension for me was, I was never overly I love I love kids and I love babies,
Yeah.
all of that. And I've got lots of beautiful nephews and nieces and friends' children, which I love. So I
Uh-huh.
think naturally I have motherly instincts, I think. But I wasn't desperate. I didn't
Yeah.
ever think, I wasn't someone that ever thought, oh, I must have a child because that defined, that I wasn't. However, I always just assumed that yes,
Yes.
I at some point will have children myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think as I got older and realized I hadn't, and then of course the window was closing on me as well and
Mm.
hubby, the tension for me was, am I feeling, am I concerned about what people will say, or is it truly something that I,
What?
wanted? And
Mm.
yeah, so I think that was my tension. So
Yeah.
I was battling the whole what I thought people expected of me
Yes.
versus, is this really what I want, and is this, and so but
Yes.
ultimately we did say we would love to try and have
Mm.
children, and but that's where it was a real challenge because I wasn't and I reflect now, of course, because it was like
Mm.
I felt like I was letting people down, especially
Yes.
family, more family than
Yes.
anyone else.
Yes.
And then, that's where then it becomes really challenging because you're like, okay, have
Mm.
I focused too much on my career and, not
Mm.
put enough time into having children? But, and then that's where we thought, let's at least let's try. And
Yes.
my dad has got a really interesting wisdom, which I always, share where it makes sense. But, he's always said, if you don't give it a go, you will never know. And I know it sounds really
Oh.
simple. And so,
Uh-huh.
for me, I thought we owe it to ourselves to give it a go.
Yes.
but hubby and I are very tight, and we always knew it's not going to define us. It's, you know, if it
Yeah.
works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it was more challenging than I expected, though, because once you put yourself in it, you want the outcome and
Yes, yes,
not
you're
get
committed.
correct. And so when you don't get the outcome, which is a beautiful baby,
Uh-huh.
that's really hard, because then,
Yeah.
you know, then because it's quite an emotional roller coaster for anyone that has been
Mhm.
through IVF. And I find we only, I think we hear more the success stories for IVF, and we don't
Yes.
talk
Yes.
enough about the you know, there's a lot of people in my
Yep.
situation as well that go through it and don't have no success.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
don't think we talk enough about that. And I took a while to, it was hard for me to talk about for a while as well. Um,
Yeah.
but, you know, having gone through it, it's really reminded me that A, it doesn't define me, and that it's
Yes.
okay, and that I can still provide that motherly instinct. And
Yes.
interestingly, some people describe me at work, especially my past role, as having those, you know, I was like the mother of the Melbourne office, you know, so to
Uh-huh.
speak, at Suncorp. But so I think I naturally, and I think that's where I got to that realization that we gave it a go. It didn't work, therefore accept that it was not meant to be. And so
Yep.
I am a very
Yes.
you know, and that's the sort of the wisdoms that come out as you get older, that it was not meant to be, and so
Yes.
and I can't change that, and so all I can do is how I deal with it moving forward. So had to
Mm-hmm.
close the chapter on it, and then I became
Mm-hmm.
okay with it, and then I realized
Mm.
that. It doesn't mean I'm a failure as a female. It doesn't define me,
Yes. Yes.
you know. So yeah, but it is hard because
Yeah.
it's
It's
about
hard.
what it's about expectations, you know, and sort of
Yeah.
worrying about people judging, and
Yeah.
but not knowing people's, you know, everyone has their own story, and some people choose and others it's not, there is no
It
choice.
just doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
it just
Yeah.
doesn't happen for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And so, but being okay with that, because it took me a little
Mm.
bit to be okay with that. Because again, it was like, did I start too late? You know, because then you go,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't I start this in my 30s?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you do go through
You go
the
through
emotion.
self-judgment or
Correct.
like it's my
Yeah.
fault
Right.
and I love I do really appreciate your openness about this because I think
Mm,
you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people who obviously decide they want to have kids and for different
mm,
reasons they can't. And you know, and it's hard.
mm,
It's hard.
mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you're going through IVF, you've made the decision that you would like to have a child, but there's no
Correct. Yeah.
guarantee.
Mm,
And my situation, similar but different. This is a lot of sharing, but
yes.
I had cancer 6 weeks after my first daughter was born,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Mm,
It was just like an out of body experience, but they put me straight onto chemo
mm,
and I couldn't, breastfeed or anything, but they said you don't try and have another baby for a couple of years because you want to make sure that cancer doesn't come back. So
yes.
amazing outcome that, the chemo worked.
Yeah.
But 2 to 3 years later, we thought, oh, I'd like to at least try,
Yes.
and I had my first, so that seemed to be working. But let's actually see. And because the chemo, it kills fertility. So,
Yes.
so I
Yeah.
went to see a fertility specialist, and basically I was 35, but they
Mm,
said you've got the similar fertility of a 45
mm,
because
yeah.
it, kills all the remaining eggs when I had the chemo.
Yes.
And so similar in that point, I'm like, we can try, but
Yeah.
it may not happen. And you just have to
Yeah.
deal with, the hope doesn't work, the hope it doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, the doctor said to me, like, the only option then is if you have like a family member, like a sister or someone who are willing to donate eggs. But then I'm like, oh, that goes down a whole new.
Does.
Oh, I don't, and my husband, I don't think would be comfortable with that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it just adds a whole lot of family complexity.
Yeah.
Even though, like, one of my sisters said, "Yeah, I'll give you an egg."
It's like a
But we were,
handbag.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it took a year, but we actually ended up having our second child, Roxy. And so for me, she was always my almost like miracle child
Yeah.
because it wasn't a given.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so that roller coaster of just, being okay with what is
Yes.
and, you know, being grateful for health because that was
Hmm.
such a big thing
Absolutely.
to appreciate after my cancer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm alive. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it is so hard to anchor in it's okay when you
Yeah.
feel like there's something that may or may not happen that you really want. And so I think that does add so much resilience because it's like no matter what, no matter
Mm.
the outcome, I'm okay.
Yeah. And it's so true. And you reminded me of just even that moment where we, to your point around the when they told you, you're more like the 45-year, and of
Yeah.
course, an IVF, I mean, it's a lot of it is around the stats, it's such a,
Hmm.
and that was the part I was uncomfortable about, interestingly.
Mm.
I felt like it wasn't a very human process. It was like it was having out of body experiences every time because, just the process you go through, the appointments,
Yes.
the medication, what it does to your hormone, everything.
Yeah.
So there were times when I said, is this really worth it? It feels too
Yeah.
hard to be doing. So that's the part I was struggling with as well. I
Mm.
remember. But yeah, you reminded me of that moment where we both, hubby and I remember we was talking to the person from IVF and it was at Melbourne IVF. And I think it was where we had done a few rounds and we thought, how much are we going to keep going here, guys? And so
Mm.
you then look at the stats. And then, of course, because of
Mm.
my age, I was in my sort of, what was it, sort of mid 40s, get closer to mid 40s, let's
Mm.
say early to mid 40s.
Mm.
Anyway, and they give you the stats. You only have a 1% chance of success. And you just sit there and you go, wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot to go through for 1%. But
Yes.
and they'll vary. But if you've got resilience, if you're in the
Mm.
run,
Don't give
right,
up. Don't give
don't
up.
give up. And then they said, but then and of course they started to throw options around. But you could think
Mm.
about surrogacy, and you can think about
Yes.
this and that. And my
Yeah.
hubby and I, similar thing, donation of eggs and all that stuff. And
Yes.
hubby and I just looked at it. And I remember this moment. I actually remember us being in the clinic, and we both
Yes.
looked at each other, and we went, we're done. We just
Yeah.
looked at each other and we said,
Yeah.
it's not us. We're
Yeah.
done. If we can't have it together
Yes.
with our
Hmm.
biological stuff, so we just at that moment said, we're done. And it was actually quite a powerful moment for hubby and I because we know we were both connected on that, because it can actually
Hmm.
impact relationships. It's
Oh,
a right, and
absolutely.
it really, and no doubt, obviously, compounded with what you went through, Rowena, with the cancer side as well. But it
Mm.
is really
Hmm.
taxing on people and relationships. So I was really grateful because that's my other
Mm.
thing. Resilience and gratitude, really, really
Mm.
important for me too. That
Hmm.
hubby and I were on the same page and we had been through this journey and
Yeah.
we've come out of it and we're both absolutely okay that we are now just the two of us
Yeah.
and our gorgeous fur baby, our cat. Um, so, and I found that quite powerful and strengthening, because you
Yes.
do worry about your relationship, and I'm very proud to
Yes.
say that we're clocking up our 30 years of marriage this year, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so
Congratulations.
thank
That's
you.
amazing.
Yeah, so that's great, and that's really important for me because it was so important that we got through it together and we were
Yes.
united as a team, hubby and
Yeah.
I. And yeah, but I remember that moment when we just said, "That's it, we're done, and we're okay
Yeah.
with this," and we moved on with
Yeah.
life. You know,
And that and that
so,
and
yeah,
that I think that's a huge part of resilience, which is
mm,
accepting what you can't control.
yes,
And it doesn't mean you don't try, but
yeah,
it means like you try, but you don't keep blindly trying if it's not necessarily taking you to a place that you want.
yeah,
And that is about the relationship as well and the
mm,
difficulty and the exhaustion and all those appointments and the up and
Mm,
down of will it work or won't it? Like that's all
yeah,
part of the relationship. It's not just about the baby.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, that is a huge part of resilience, which is
Mm,
just it's okay to let things go.
that's right.
Yeah, and actually it can be one of the wisest decisions.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that actually is what helped me, um, even when I made certain calls on some,
Mm.
choices I made around jobs, and organizations. It
Yeah.
actually helped me because, you do get clearer. So, and clarity is so important, I think, for everyone. But you do start to get clear on what you want and what works and what you don't want and what
Mm.
doesn't work. So both
Mhm.
professionally and personally. So I
Mm.
think because of, that moment, those sort of what I call messy few years going through the
Mm.
personal stuff, and probably where I made some decisions on some jobs that organisations didn't quite work for me. Yeah,
Mm.
now I'm much clearer, and that's where
Yes.
I feel like now I'm in my what I'm calling my empowerment years. I'm in my 50s because you learn so much, and you've got to go through that to then help
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
comfortable on the choices you make. But
yeah,
just gives you more
absolutely.
clarity, I think, just on how you make choices. And that
Yes.
it's, and like you said, it's okay to actually close the door on something if it's not working.
Yeah.
Both personally,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that. I'd had some short stints at some organizations where I
Mm-hmm.
knew they were just not me, not working.
Mm-hmm.
I closed
Mm-hmm.
the door, and they were the best decisions I made because they helped
Mm.
me get clearer on where I wanted to be. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then to find the thing that absolutely is right for you.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
there is a whole lot of value of just the experimentation that you get through real life experience.
Mm.
I
It's very
always I
true.
always say too that, whether it's in a work context or whether it's a personal context, but
Mm.
I think our minds can only ever get us about 70% of the way there. Like even if you've really thought it through and you've
Yeah,
reflected, but experience is the thing that
yeah.
brings gifts that you just didn't predict or didn't know were there.
Yeah, so true. And I think that's where, when you say we're, proud to be now in my 50s with so much
Mm,
experience and wisdom and yeah, and that actually excites me too because I love to
mm,
impart it, and especially on younger people who,
mm,
go through their own challenges, especially from a career perspective. So yeah,
mm,
and it's great because as you age, you start to go, am I still adding value? Am I still
mhm,
worth it? You want
mhm.
to, and yeah, it's like don't underestimate the wisdoms, and don't forget the lived experience is so
Yeah.
and that people I find it's interesting. I'm sure you hear it too, no doubt, with all the work you do, Rowena. But yeah, I find young people, especially I'm doing a little bit of mentoring of some younger people in my team,
Uh-huh.
casual mentoring in my
Uh-huh.
current team at CBUS, and yeah, and I love it. Like even in my first sort of few months, I had one of the grads approach me, who wanted some career advice, and I thought, oh, I love that,
Mm,
that they're actually asking me. So it's really nice, and it's a great reminder of how much we can offer. I think,
yes.
in our wise years of being in the 50s,
Exactly. We've lived more years. The one thing you can't fast forward is time.
exactly, exactly,
You can't turn it back and you can't fast forward it. So
exactly.
it is what it is. And it's exactly what your, dad said, like have a go.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
there's no guarantee it'll work out the way you thought. Sometimes it works
Yeah.
out better, sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's
Yeah.
okay because that's part of the wisdom.
Exactly. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So I definitely, yeah, that always rings in my ear. And I've always been someone who has a go. I've always
Yeah.
naturally been curious and
Yeah.
and so it's like, and I've never really feared the unknown. And I think
Hmm.
that has definitely grown over the years as well, where you just,
Mm.
which is why I'm, very just give it a crack, bless
Yes.
my dad, he
Yes.
gave me that advice. Learn, what do you learn from it? If
Yeah.
it doesn't work, it's okay. So I think I've definitely,
Yeah.
going back to that resilience, but yeah, built up my, I'm not afraid of failure, because I
Yes.
always use that to propel me. And it's like, it's
Yes.
okay. Not everything is perfect in life. And so,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It
it's a
is,
good.
it can be messy and you're right. Like the thing you're always guaranteed when you take action or give it a go is to
Mm.
learn something. You're
Yeah,
always
exactly.
guaranteed to learn something.
That's right. Which people, and that can be crippling for some, where they
Mm,
sort of, if you don't sort of yeah, you got to remind yourself of
mm,
and it's about giving it a go in a not in a way that puts you at
mm.
risk of anything, but yeah, and that's why I've always said, and change, and that's part of it, isn't
Mm.
it? When change
Yes.
happens, throw yourself. I've always and myself,
Uh-huh.
if I reflect how I've dealt with change, it's probably why I am so adaptive. I think both personally, I'm very adapt. I can adapt, but and not let it rattle me. But I think I've always
Mm.
thrived on it too, because I see that as a way to just, okay, let's give this a go. Let's try and
Yeah.
let's, and doesn't work out. Yeah, again, what do you learn from it?
Yeah.
But yeah, but I've always loved change because I find it placed to where naturally my head is, because I'm such a naturally curious person, and I
Yes.
like to change things and
Yeah. Yeah.
transform things, and so
Yeah. And find the gifts that come
yeah,
from leaning
exactly,
forward.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I've got a few quick fire
yeah.
questions
Let's go.
to wrap us up.
hmm
Okay, so the first one. What are three things you've learned about yourself in recent years?
I've I've learnt to be calm. Well, I've learnt that I'm a more calmer. Is that a word? Yeah,
Mhm.
I've definitely become more calm than I used to be. So I've learnt to not be reactive and give
Mm.
oxygen to stuff that I shouldn't be giving oxygen to. So I think I've definitely learnt that over the past few years, especially. Yeah,
Mm.
just to stay. So calmness has now become one of my little superpowers, I've decided.
That yoga must have been good.
Must have been. It finally came good. Yes.
Yeah. What is important to you at the moment in your life?
Yeah, probably a balance for me. So for me, I'm relatively new still in my my role at CBUS. Um,
Mhm.
in my personal life, I've got my beautiful elderly mum who's going through dementia, and she's at late stage dementia. So
Yeah.
getting the balance between making sure I'm making time for my family,
Yeah.
especially with my mum, because obviously that's sort of
Yeah.
that long goodbye that for anyone has been through that with family
Mm.
and friends. So balance for me, making sure I'm doing what I need to do
Intentional.
on my work
Yes.
side, and then making sure I've got time, and giving myself that personal time to make sure I'm
Mm.
properly decompressing, making sure I'm booking those holidays and giving time to
Hmm.
my hubby and to my family and friends, and but it's probably especially my mum right now, because I
Yeah.
know she's not going to be around
Yeah.
forever. Yeah, well, no one's going to be around
Yeah.
forever. But yeah,
Yeah.
balance. That's my
Yeah.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I can definitely relate to your point about
Mm,
elderly parents because my
yeah.
parents are both early 80s or early to mid 80s.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
similar situation where I'm like prioritizing time
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
because it's really important. And
Mm,
you just know that, it may not be an option in another couple of years.
exactly. Yes.
Okay, last one.
Yeah.
Of course, there's three parts. What is what is a current fear, a current inspiration, and a current challenge for you at the moment? So fear, inspiration, and challenge.
Mm. Fear. Fear is a good question. um, yeah, I probably a fear at the moment, and it's probably more of still trying to do too much. So I think it's and then yeah, just putting that pressure on myself to do too much. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a fear, and probably because I've always operated in a way. So yeah, so
Mm.
that's probably my fear. Um, which means why I need to keep finding that balance. So
Yes,
it does
yes, that all
connect.
makes
It
sense.
connects. Um, the what was the second one? Sorry, Rowena.
Inspiration. That's okay.
Inspiration. Yeah, inspiration. I think for me, yeah, again, and I'm thinking about this one. Maybe I have to go to that third one before I talk to inspiration.
The challenge. Challenge is the third one.
The challenge, yeah, maybe the challenge. Am I about able to reverse the order so I can
Yes,
think about
you
inspiration?
absolutely can.
Yeah, the challenge, maybe it's the, and again, I think it does come from making sure I'm, giving myself that proper time, personal space. But I think the challenge is that, time, I think, is still, our enemy, and
Yes,
wanting to do everything. And so I
yes.
just think, and, work is taking up a lot of my time right now. So it's
Yep.
that challenge of making, I think that's still
Making
going
all
to
the pieces work.
exactly, yeah. So I think that will continue to be a little bit, but again, it's making sure that I'm mindful of it and how
Yeah.
do I get through that. And then the inspiration, let me just think. For me, inspiration for me is, and maybe it's just a little bit of a sort of rolling on the theme of what we're talking about. I'm quite inspired about, the value I can keep adding,
Yes, I love that.
yeah. So I'm going to
Yeah.
use my wisdoms, and the fact that I have got
Yes.
lots of lived experience and not to forget it. So I'm going to just remind
Mm.
myself of how much I can offer
Mm.
and because I am very driven by helping others grow as well and
Mm.
inspiring everyone, I'm very driven. It's funny because when I reflect on what is most important for me right now, again, personally and professionally,
Mm.
it's people. And I love, there's
Mm.
nothing more powerful than helping people grow or, helping people through a challenging time because I
Mm.
find it helps me too. So
Mm.
that's probably my inspiration. How do I make sure I keep reminding myself of how the value I've got that I can keep imparting and
Yes.
what is it?
Sharing with others,
Sharing it. What is it?
helping them grow.
Yeah, giving it forwards. Paying it
Yeah.
forwards. How do I keep paying it
Yeah.
forwards to people that are in my life, both in my personal side of things,
Yeah.
especially in my professional career as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
the Uncomfortable Growth podcast. You had so many wise and beautiful things to share. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Potter.
Oh, thank you, Rowena. And I've really loved the chat and yeah, so and I appreciate you inviting me to come along. Yeah, so look forward to catching up again soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Serena. See you.
If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?